X. Her eyes widened seeing Thane's condition. Oh my God, Thane, what is this? She asked worriedly as he had a large open wound on his right arm and a few bruises all over his face. His shirt was stained with blood. Wine helped him sit. Nothing, just got into a little fight, he said, shrugging his shoulders. Wine passed him a glare, wearing the gloves. Yes, just little fight, she muttered, taking the medical supplies and going towards him. This wound on the arm needs to be stitched, she said, cleaning the wound while Thane stared at her with a smile. All the way through the process, Wine could feel his gaze piercing her soul, but she ignored it and did her work. Thane didn't even heed tones. Wine passed him the glass of water and the painkiller after treating him. Painkiller. Thane silently swallowed it and placed the glass on the table beside him. Wine was about to turn around, but Thane grabbed her wrist and pulled her towards him, causing her to land on his lap. Wine gasped. Stop being reckless with your arm, she spoke sternly. Thane smiled, kissing her chin. No worries, you're here to take care of me, he spoke softly. Wine shook her head. But that doesn't mean after every 2 days you come to me wounded. These wounds are the only thing that keeps me closer to you, or else either you are busy with your clinic or me, he said, letting out a sigh and leaned on the sofa. I just want us to get married as soon as possible. My life isn't that long. She slapped him on the lips. Stop talking nonsense. Even your slap feels like a kiss, he said teasingly. Stop being a pervert, she said, resting her head on his shoulder. Thane chuckled, intertwining his fingers in her hair. Then let's get married so I would have a peaceful life. One let out a long breath. But I don't want to get married now. I want to find my brother first. Thane just hummed in response. But that has nothing to do with our marriage. His mood turned sore. Leave all that. Let's go to your house. I'll cook for you tonight. She changed the subject, knowing the subject of her brother and their wedding would lead them into a heated argument as usual. You don't have patience? No, she said and stood. But you must stay for a few days. She passed him a smile. I'll stay for a week or longer only if you stop these fights. That's a part of my job. She glared at him. Okay, fine. I won't do anything as long as you stay. Wine nodded with a smile. 𝐶𝐶. It's been more than a week since Thane was injured and Wine has taken care of him. Besides hectic days, today Thane managed a dinner date after so long. He wanted to talk to Wine about their wedding, as for the next 3 months he would be on a mission, uncertain if he would return alive. Meanwhile, Wine was muddled up in the thoughts of her lost brother. Now they were sitting across from each other having small talk when Thane decided to talk about it. Wine, we have been together for so long now. I want us to get married, he said, placing his hand on the table with the ring box under it. Wine remained silent, staring at an invisible point. Wine, are you listening? He waved his hand in front of her. Yes, what? She said, snapping back to reality. I said something. Why are you zoning out? He said coldly. He was getting annoyed by her strange behavior these days. Sorry, I was just thinking something, she said, shaking her head. He bitterly chuckled. I don't understand what's on your mind. You ignore my presence as if I don't even exist. All the time I have to repeat myself, which I hate the most. He spoke through gritted teeth, running his fingers through his hair. I'm sorry, it's just about the war, she said, holding his hand. In an instant, he melted into her touch, but he masked his expressions. No, don't be sorry. I should be sorry for interrupting your work, he spoke angrily. I'm all ears, speak up. He looked away. I'm sorry, please. He let out a sigh, fixing his gaze on her. What the hell have you done to me? I can't even be mad at you, he muttered, shaking his head. Let's come straight to the point. I want us to get married as soon as possible. What's the rush? I mean, we have a long time. Listen, Wine, it's been so long we have been together. I don't know. I just want to feel the feeling of being with you, with full rights and forever. I want to know how it feels at home, how it feels to be with someone we love, how it feels to have someone waiting for you, how it feels to have a family. Wine bit her lips, her face went gloomy. Thane waited for her response. I get it, Thane, but I am too close to get to my brother. Once everything is sorted out, then we can get married without any worry. He let out a deep breath. No, don't get it, Wine. You know how my job is. I have thousands of enemies out there. My life is uncertain and next 3 months Wine cut in. Then you are just being impulsive. I don't want to marry you when I am muddled up in thoughts and problems. I can't work on our relationship with so much mess. I might not even give you proper time, and my brother. Please stop with your brother. I'm just fed up of hearing about him every other day. There's always your brother between us. You don't care about me and my feelings. What am I to you? I'm helping you find your brother. He's not a kid. At the right time, he might come in front of you. He spoke furiously, slightly slamming the table. We can marry after a few months. Once I'm certain I can take responsibility. He chuckled bitterly, shaking his head and stood. By that time, I would be buried under this ground. I don't want you to take any responsibility. I just want you by my side. But I won't insist anymore, he said and made his way out. Wine stood to stop him, but her eyes landed on the ring box on the table. She picked it up and opened it. I'm sorry, Theo. I promise I'll make it up to you, she muttered, holding the ring box with teary eyes, and ran after him. Few days later, since the late night Wine didn't saw Theo again. He didn't even contact her unless Wine did, and he ended the conversation shortly. The Wine came out of her clinic thinking about Theo. She decided to drop the idea of looking for her brother, as Theo said he would come in front of her at the right time. After all, he's not a kid. Wine was walking to the parking lot when she heard footsteps causing her to stop in her tracks. As soon as she turned around, someone sprayed something on her face and everything blacked out. Wine didn't know how much time had passed until she opened her eyes in an unfamiliar place, causing her to frown. Asher, she's awake. She saw two guys. One of them was facing his back to her, whom she assumed to be Asher, while the other one was pacing back and forth in front of her. Wine realized she was bound to a chair with duct tape on her mouth. Great, Darwin, call her boyfriend and tell him to be here. It would be fun killing them together, Asher said with a smirk. Darwin pulled out his phone and dialed Theon's number, putting the phone on speaker. Wine's eyes brimmed with tears as she heard Theon's voice. You better be here within an hour along with $3 million, or your pretty little girlfriend will be dead with a bullet between her eyes. Wine sobbed through the duct tape plastered over her mouth. You tried to touch my woman, consider yourself dead. He growled and hung up. Asher and Darwin chuckled. 20 minutes later, the sound of gunshots ricocheted off the walls of the warehouse. Soon the kidnappers fall over dead. Wine let out a sob of relief. Theo and a crowd of his men entered, everyone shouting orders. Theo rushed to Wine and sat in front of her, gently ripping off the duct tape and releasing her hands and legs from the rope. I'm so sorry, he muttered, embracing her into a protective hug. I'm sorry, baby. No one will ever touch you again, I swear on my life, he whispered, kissing her crown. Wine silently sobbed on his chest, holding him tightly as if her life depended on it. Stop crying, let's go, he said before breaking the hug and cupping her face. Theo drove her to his house. All the way, Wine was silently sobbing, making him confused. No, Wine was sitting on his bed, still crying silently. Theo came with a glass of water. Here, drink this. Thank you, she mumbled, taking it from him and gulped it in one go. Theo sat beside her and held her hand. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Are you hurt? Did they do something? She shook her head while sniffing. Theo wiped her tears, but they kept coming. I'm sorry, she barely whispered and encircled her arms around his neck, burying her face in his neck. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know I'm wrong. I have been pushing it away all the time. Don't be mad at me, please. She cried. Theo let out a sigh as usual, melting into her touch and holding her tightly. Don't cry, I'm not mad at you, he said in a low tone. Wine pulled out, wiping her face. But your tone is dry. I'm just hurt. It would be fine in a few days, he spoke calmly, staring at her with a hint of affection, his gaze filled with love. I'm sorry, she whispered, kissing him softly. I promise I'll make it up to you. Theo nodded, caressing her cheek with his thumb. I love you, please don't leave me. She pressed her forehead against his. Why would I leave you? I don't know, my heart has been anxious for a few days. She clutched his shirt in her fist. You're just overthinking. Whatever, just stay with me. She enveloped him in a hug. Theo smiled faintly, kissing her temple. your house as well. You can move here anytime you want. No need to ask me. She smiled, placing back her head, holding him tightly. 3 days later, Wine shifted to Theon's house, but her heart was still not at peace. The bright investigator Theon hired to find her brother sent her the pic and details of her brother. Now Theon sent his driver and called her back home as he had brought one of his injured friends to his house. Wine arrived home and saw Theon pacing back and forth. Theon, are you okay? Did you get hurt? She asked, eyeing him head to toe anxiously. Nothing happened to me, I'm fine. Are you sure? He nodded, patting her cheek softly. Where is the guy? In the guest room, come. He said, holding her hand, and made his way to the guest room. Here he is. Wine's eyes widened as soon as she saw him. She mumbled, staring at him with surprise, then passed her a questioning gaze. He is 𝐁𝐞𝐭, my brother. Then glanced at 𝐁𝐞𝐭 with the raised brows, who was smiling at them. You knew it already. 𝐁𝐞𝐭 nodded. Wine rushed to him and embraced him in a warm hug. 𝐁𝐞𝐭 hissed as she touched his wound. Watch out, Wine, he's injured. Wine pulled away. I'm sorry. It's okay. Then laid on the door frame while Wine took out the medical supplies. She examined his wound. Wasn't deep as the bullet had just touched him. How did you get this? She asked, cleaning the wound. I killed them who killed our parents and kidnapped me, separating us. Wine stopped, glancing at 𝐁𝐞𝐭. Why didn't you meet me when you knew where I was? She asked, resuming her work. I wanted to meet you, but then I discovered you were with this guy. He pointed at Theon. I knew he could protect you better than me, so I thought to take revenge first and then meet you. As you were back, protect resisted by yourself. His phone rang, grabbing his attention. He excused himself and walked out while Wine stared at his retreating figure. 𝐁𝐞𝐭 began talking. Both of them got immersed in the conversation, but Wine's mind was stuck on what Theon said. After a few minutes, Wine walked to Theon's room where he just declined the call. Where is 𝐁𝐞𝐭? He asked, sitting on the couch. He is asleep. Oh, I see. Wine stared at him keenly. He seemed to be stressed. Come here, he said, pointing at his lap. Wine went closer and sat on his lap. What happened? He cut in. I want to take my mind off work. I just want a few moments of peace. He said, snuggling into her neck. Wine intertwined her fingers in his hair and tightened the hug. They were hugging silently for a few good minutes until Wine spoke. Why did you tell brother to protect me? Are you fed up with me? He pulled out and stared at her affectionately. I can never be fed up with you. You are my only family in this world. She covered his face, looking straight into his eyes. Then why did you say that? I'm going on a mission in a while. I'll not be around for some time, that's why I told him to protect you. He spoke softly and kissed her. What? Why? No, please don't go, she said anxiously. I must leave, I can't back off from it. She began crying. Please don't go, Theon, at least not now. She sobbed. He wiped her tears. That's the part of my job. Then leave this job. Mafia world will give you nothing. Please. She cried hard. Theon hugged her. Didn't you promise you wouldn't go on any mission if you got married? Stop crying, please. I did promise, but we didn't get married. I'm sorry, please don't punish me like this. A wave of despair washed over her. She was holding him as if he would disappear. Theon cradled her. He wasn't expecting this reaction from her. What's wrong, baby? It's not like I haven't been on any mission before. His voice was as gentle as the delicate touch of petals on a blooming flower. I don't know. I don't feel good. Just stay with me. She spoke over his neck. Why don't we get married now? It's not possible now, he said with a chuckle. Okay, I'm here with you, he whispered, tightening his grip around her. After a few moments, my sobs turned into sniffs. He let out a sigh, stroking her hair gently. 20 minutes later, Wine was soundly asleep. He lifted her and placed her on the bed gently, but she was holding him tightly even in sleep. He removed her hands, but she frowned, then kissed her on the forehead. I'm sorry I have to leave, he whispered and covered her in the duvet. Without looking back at her, he walked out. 4 months later. It's been 4 months since he left for his mission. The next day when Wine woke up, she was met by an empty house. She asked 𝐁𝐞𝐭, but he knew nothing. Wine lived with 𝐁𝐞𝐭 in Theon's mansion for 15 days, but then she moved back to her house with 𝐁𝐝 as everything reminded her of Theon. Each and every corner of his house was filled with their memories. Why stopped going to the clinic? She felt a sense of hollowness and emptiness flaring up inside her. She didn't shed a tear. It was as if her tears dried, her emotions died. Now Jungkook insisted her to go to walk with him. He sat her on the bench near the river and went to bring her ice cream. Why stared at her empty palms. She let out a sigh and stood walking closer to the river. The cold breeze brushed her face. She tucked her hair behind her ear when a familiar cologne hit her nostrils. She shook her head thinking she was delusional when she heard a familiar deep voice. Baby missed me. Wine turned around with a jerk. She stared at him with shock. I'm daydreaming, she said with a cold smile and looked away. You're not. He inched closer to her. Wine fixed her gaze on him and hesitantly raised her hand to touch his face. Then held her hand and placed it on his cheek. I'm back, he mumbled with a smile and teary eyes. You're back, she said in a state of trance, caressing the bruises on his face. Theo nodded, holding her hand. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. She grabbed him by the collar. You deceived me. You could have just told me to get out of your life. She cried hysterically and pushed him. Theo moved closer to her, trying to hold her. I didn't, he said and reached out to her, but one stepped backward. You did. I told you not to go, yet you went when I fell asleep. You were just fed up with me. He held her close to his chest while Wine was crying and hitting him without caring about their surroundings. I'm sorry, I didn't have any other option. 4 months, 4 freaking months, you didn't even try to contact me. Why did you come back? She stopped wiggling and rested her head on his chest. I couldn't risk anything. If I had contacted you, they would have known about you. I came back for you. The only reason I'm alive is you. I'm sorry. He muttered, holding her tightly. I missed you so much. Please don't leave me again. I know I missed you too. He cupped her face and tilted her face upward, wiping her tears. No more tears. She nodded and pressed her lips against his, then held her by the nape of her neck and deepened the kiss. He devoured her lips until Wine was out of breath and pulled out. Will you marry me? She said, holding the ring box in front of him which he had bought for her on their date. Theo chuckled and slid the ring onto her finger. Of course. Where did you get this? He said, kissing her hand. You had left it on the table that day. He just nodded, pressing his forehead against her. Why did you leave the clinic? You always know everything. I didn't like to do anything. Everything seemed a waste of time. I'm sorry, he mumbled when someone cleared their throat. Romeo and Juliet, believe me, you both made me feel so single. My holy eyes can't take it anymore. Everyone has been passing you both weird kiss. Let's go. Theo smiled while Wine giggled, placing her head on his chest.